HOA. Police raid my house, but I'm not even a member. I never thought I'd have to deal with a fake HOA security team raiding my house, but here we are. Let me tell you how I went from living peacefully on my 2-acre property to facing down wannabe cops who thought they had authority over my land. My wife and I bought our dream home about 3 years ago. It's a beautiful old farmhouse that sits on land that's been in the previous owner's family for generations. The property is completely outside city limits and not part of any HOA or housing development. There's a fancy gated community called Oakwood Estates that borders one side of our property, but we've never had any issues with them. At least not until they got a new HOA board 6 months ago. The trouble started when I decided to build a workshop in my backyard. I got all the proper permits from the county and started construction. Everything was going fine until I got a letter in my mailbox from Oakwood Estates, HOA, claiming I was in violation of their building codes. I ignored it at first. I knew I wasn't part of their HOA. But then the letters kept coming, each one more threatening than the last. Finally, I called the HOA office to straighten things out. "Oakwood Estates, HOA, how can I help you?" a woman answered. "Hi, I'm calling about these violation notices I keep getting. I live at the old Miller farmhouse next door to your development. I'm not part of your HOA. "Oh yes, we have you on record as a non-compliant member," she said dismissively. "Your workshop project wasn't approved by the architectural committee. You'll need to halt construction immediately." "Ma'am, I'm not a member at all. My property isn't part of your development." "Sir, all properties adjacent to Oakwood Estates fall under our jurisdiction for aesthetic purposes. It's in our bylaws." I tried to reason with her, but it was like talking to a wall. I hung up and figured I'd just keep ignoring their notices while continuing with my workshop construction. That's when things got weird. I started noticing an SUV with Oakwood Estates security painted on the side driving slowly past my property multiple times a day. The driver would stop and take pictures of my house and the workshop construction. It was unsettling, but I tried to brush it off. Then one Saturday morning, I was working in the partially finished workshop when I heard vehicles pulling into my driveway. I looked out to see 3 SUVs with the same security markings parked there. 6 people in black tactical-style uniforms were getting out, complete with fake badges and utility belts. Their leader started barking orders like he was on a police raid. "Team 1, secure the perimeter. Team 2, with me to inspect the illegal structure." I stepped out of the workshop, absolutely furious. "What the hell do you think you're doing on my property?" The leader turned to me with this ridiculous authoritative stance. "Sir, we are the Oakwood Estates Security and Compliance Unit. We have orders to inspect and document the unauthorized construction on this property." "Get off my land right now," I said firmly. "You have no authority here. This is private property." He pulled out some official-looking document. "This is a notice of inspection and enforcement signed by the HOA board. We have full authority to conduct compliance checks on all properties under HOA jurisdiction." "I am not under your jurisdiction." I was trying really hard to keep my cool. "Leave now or I'm calling the real police." That's when things went sideways. 2 of his officers started walking toward my workshop while another began taking photos. I stepped in front of them to block their path. "Stand aside, sir," the leader ordered. "Interfering with an official HOA inspection is grounds for immediate fines and possible legal action." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "This is not an official anything. You are trespassing on private property. Leave now." Instead of leaving, one of them actually tried to push past me into the workshop. I stood my ground, and he shoved me hard enough that I stumbled backward. That's when I called 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "I need police at address immediately. I have multiple trespassers on my property claiming to be HOA security. They just assaulted me while trying to force their way into my workshop." The fake security team leader's face changed when he heard me talking to 911. He started shouting to his people, "Pack it up, we'll come back with proper enforcement." But before they could leave, I got their license plate numbers and plenty of video of them and their vehicles. They peeled out of my driveway just as I could hear sirens in the distance. 2 sheriff's deputies arrived a few minutes later. I showed them my video of the incident and explained the ongoing harassment from the HOA. They were not amused by the fake security team's actions. "This is way over the line," one deputy said, shaking his head. "They're impersonating law enforcement and committed assault and trespassing. We'll need to file a formal report." I spent the next hour giving my statement and providing copies of all the HOA's threatening letters. The deputies advised me to contact a lawyer immediately and said they would be investigating the HOA's security team for multiple potential criminal violations. I called my friend who's a lawyer first thing Monday morning. After reviewing everything, he was practically giddy. "This is incredible," he said. "They've committed multiple serious offenses here: impersonating law enforcement, criminal trespassing, assault, harassment, and their little security team is probably operating without proper licensing too. We're going to nail them to the wall." We filed a lawsuit against the HOA, their board members personally, and their fake security company for damages. We also filed formal complaints with the state security contractor licensing board and the district attorney's office. The investigation revealed that their security team was completely unlicensed. The uniforms, badges, and vehicle markings were all illegal attempts to impersonate law enforcement. Several of the officers had criminal records that would have prevented them from getting actual security licenses. The HOA board tried to claim they had no idea their security contractor was operating illegally. But we had emails showing they specifically requested the tactical uniforms and badges to project authority in the neighborhood. They wanted their own private police force to intimidate residents. The district attorney ended up charging the security team leader and 2 others with multiple felonies related to impersonating law enforcement. The HOA board president and vice president were charged with conspiracy charges for their role in creating the fake security force. Our civil suit was even more satisfying. The judge was absolutely livid when she saw the video of them trying to force their way into my workshop. She awarded us $175,000 in damages plus legal fees. She also issued an injunction permanently barring the HOA from attempting to exercise any authority over non-member properties. The aftermath was spectacular. The entire HOA board was forced to resign. The security company was dissolved. Several board members had to sell their homes to pay their portion of the damages since their HOA insurance wouldn't cover their illegal actions. The new HOA board sent me a formal written apology and updated their bylaws to explicitly state they have zero authority over non-member properties. They also got rid of their security team entirely, switching to a legitimate contracted security company that only patrols inside their development. I finished my workshop without any further harassment. These days when I'm out there woodworking, I sometimes see the regular security car drive past on their normal rounds. The driver just gives me a polite wave. No stopping, no photos, no tactical teams trying to raid my property. The best part? The old board members who caused all this trouble can't even show their faces in the neighborhood anymore. Most of them moved away in shame after everything came out in court. Turns out trying to create your own police force to harass innocent property owners isn't a great career move. My wife and I still laugh about it sometimes, how a group of entitled HOA board members thought they could form their own tactical unit to intimidate people. Their power trip cost them their homes, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and some even got criminal records out of it. Meanwhile, my workshop came out looking great. I guess the moral of the story is, don't try to play police officer with your HOA security team. And definitely don't try to raid properties that aren't even part of your association. It won't end well for you. Edit, wow, this blew up. Thanks for all the support and awards, everyone. Many of you asked for an update, so here's what's happened in the 6 months since my original post. Update. The criminal cases against the HOA board members and their fake security team finally wrapped up last week, and boy did justice get served. I thought you all would enjoy hearing how it all played out. Remember the tactical team leader who tried to force his way into my workshop? Turns out he had an outstanding warrant in another state for, get this, impersonating a police officer. The DA was thrilled to add that little detail to his case. He ended up pleading guilty to multiple felony counts and got sentenced to 18 months in prison plus 5 years probation. His two buddies who were charged also took plea deals. They each got 6 months in county jail and 3 years probation. Plus, they're permanently banned from working in any security-related field. Not that they were actually qualified anyway. The real fireworks came from the HOA board members' trial. They tried to claim they were just following standard HOA practices and had no idea their security team was operating illegally. Then my lawyer produced emails showing they specifically requested the team to look and act like real police to intimidate residents. The former board president actually broke down crying on the stand when confronted with emails where she suggested the security team should carry replica guns to enhance their authority. The judge was not amused by that revelation. In the end, the board president and vice president were both convicted of criminal conspiracy charges. They got sentenced to 30 days in jail plus 2 years probation. But the real punishment was the fines. $50,000 each plus restitution to everyone their fake police force harassed. The other 3 board members got probation and smaller fines after agreeing to testify against the president and VP. They also had to write public letters of apology that were published in the local paper. Talk about embarrassing. The civil suit damages finally got paid last month after they were forced to sell their homes. Karma's funny that way. They were so worried about property values that they created this whole mess and ended up having to sell their own houses at a loss to pay for their crimes. I actually ran into one of the former board members at the grocery store recently. She looked away and tried to hide behind a display, but I walked right up to her with a big smile. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" I said cheerfully. "Almost as nice as the day your police force tried to raid my workshop." She turned bright red and practically ran out of the store. My wife says I'm being petty, but after what they put us through, I think I've earned the right to enjoy their embarrassment a little. The new HOA board has been incredibly apologetic and professional. They even invited me to consult on writing their new security protocols to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. I declined politely. I've had enough HOA drama for one lifetime. They did make one change I really appreciate, though. The new security company they hired has strict rules about staying within HOA boundaries. Their patrol cars are clearly marked as private security, no more police cosplay, and the guards wear normal uniforms instead of tactical gear. Every time they pass by my property, they stay on their side of the line. My workshop is finally finished, and it's become my favorite place to spend time. I've started teaching basic woodworking classes there on weekends. A few people from the HOA community have even signed up. Turns out, some of them are actually decent folks who were just as appalled by their board's behavior as everyone else. One of my students is the son of a former board member. He told me his mom is still furious about losing her house, but he thinks she got what she deserved. "You can't just form your own police force and go around terrorizing people," he said. Smart kid. The craziest part? The whole incident has actually increased my property value. Apparently, my story got picked up by some real estate blogs as an example of why people should be wary of overzealous HOAs. Now my non-HOA historic property with workshop is seen as even more desirable. I've had several people from the HOA community quietly ask me about what's involved in dissolving an HOA. I just refer them to my lawyer. He's become quite the expert on fighting HOA overreach, thanks to our case. The security team leader tried to appeal his sentence last month, claiming he was just doing his job. The appeals court laughed it out of the room. Turns out, "I was just following orders" isn't a great defense when you're playing dress-up cop and assaulting people. My lawyer framed the court order permanently banning the HOA from trying to enforce rules on my property. It hangs in my workshop now as a reminder that standing up to bullies is always worth it. especially when they're wearing fake badges and tactical gear from the Army surplus store. So that's where things stand now. The bad guys faced real consequences, justice was served, and my workshop is a peaceful place for creating things instead of fighting fake police raids. Plus, I've got some great stories to tell around the workbench. Life is pretty good when you don't have to worry about an HOA SWAT team breaking down your door because they don't like your building permits. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. Couldn't have done it without you. The next one is titled, Date Ended in an Unexpected Way. Years ago, I went on a date with a girl I met on Match.com. We had been messaging back and forth for a good few days, and we were getting on great. Had a phone call or two thrown in there as well. She seemed laid back, fun, and pretty easy to talk to. After about 5 days of messaging back and forth, we arranged to meet up in the city for our first face-to-face date. As we had been getting on so well, we decided to go for a meal at a nice restaurant, rather than the coffee dates that I'd been trying this far with other potential matches. So I booked the table, long before COVID, so no credit card taken, and we met up at the restaurant. I got a feeling early on that I maybe didn't meet her expectations, looks-wise. She seemed a little somber at the start of the date, but we soldiered on and she seemed to relax and we started to have fun. Or so I thought. She was pouring the wine into herself all through the meal. I thought she was nervous, but she got herself a bit drunk. After the main course, she excused herself to the toilet. Less than a minute later, I got a text from her in the bathroom. This date is rubbish. He's brutally ugly and I'm not having fun. Can you call me in about 5 minutes and I'll pretend there's an emergency? She had clearly not meant to send this to me, but in her drunken state had just started typing on the last message she sent. She messaged me to say she was on her way before the date started. I beckoned the waiter over as I pulled my coat on and told her my wife has gone to the bathroom and I've just had a call from work. There's an emergency I have to deal with. She has the credit card. She will square up the bill. I walked out and didn't look back. Blocked her number as well. The next one is titled, My Teacher Thought They Knew My Name Better Than Me. This was years ago now when I was in secondary school, around 15 years old. We used to have form in the morning where the teacher would take the register and let you know about anything going on in the school before you went to your other classes. My form tutor was a miserable old woman that was a renowned asshole. There were several stories I could tell about her, but this one is the only time I got the better of her. My parents named me a shortened version of posh-sounding name. For the sake of the story, let's say they called me Alex, which is short for Alexander. Whenever this woman would call my name, she would always use Alexander. I brought up to her that it was not my name multiple times, and asked her to please call me Alex, as that's what my parents called me. She would always get angry and tell me, "Don't be stupid, no one is named Alex. Your name is Alexander. Alex is just what you want to be called." No matter how much I insisted, she refused. At one point she gave me a detention for asking her to call me my correct name. The school called to let my parents know I had been given a detention for arguing with NY teacher. When I told my parents I was supposed to have a detention for asking my teacher to call me the right name, they were not happy. So they gave me a trump card to use against her, my birth certificate. The next day when she called my name, I once again told her that wasn't my name. She threatened me with another detention, so I pulled out the birth certificate, put it down on her desk, and said, "My birth certificate says, my name is Alex, so that's what you will call me, thanks." The look on her face was priceless, and she started calling me my actual name for the rest of the time I was in her class.